It's been about another 4 hours and our bulk ferment is complete. I'm gonna show you. My little cup has been in here this whole time. Everything's been together in the same environment, and you can see that it has just barely hit the top of the lid, and that's what you're looking for. It doesn't need to completely fill and be fixing to explode. You just want it to just barely touch the top, and it is ready to go ahead and visual cue to be able to determine that your dough is fully fermented and ready to it should be very jiggly. Okay, jiggly like jello. It should have bubbles risen at the top. And I'm going to do the finger poke test. When I poke it with the finger, it should just ever so slightly spring back, yet the indentation is still there. If it were to spring back really quickly, then that's a sign that it needs to ferment some more, but you can slowly see it springing back. The indentation is still there. We got bubbles. It's jiggly on the edges. It looks to have pulled away from the side. My little trick method is touching the top. It is ready to go. I just have sprayed my surface area with a little bit of water just to help with the sticking. I'm gonna topple it over and just let it fall down. Another sign that it is fully fermented is it should release on its own from the bowl and pretty much leave a clean bowl. So this is just one loaf, so it's not very heavy. So it might take a little while for it to start coming down, but it'll start coming down and you will see that it will just completely release ever so nicely. If you see it clinging for dear life from the bowl and it just will not release, then that's your sign that it's just not quite ready yet and it should ferment a little bit longer. See how it slowly just released from the bowl and it left an overall pretty clean bowl. That means we caught it at the right time. Put your little aliquot dough back in there. We're gonna do a little bit of a pre-shape, okay? And what we're gonna do here is we are going to gently pull and stretch it out, okay? So starting from the middle, get your fingers underneath and just kind of gently pull. This step is called the lamination. We're just basically gonna stretch it out as far as it will go. Gently, we're not squeezing it. We're just gently pulling it, making a large pizza and letting it go as far as it can. Now this serves a couple different purposes. One is that this final lamination gives it that final stretch and that final strength into your gluten structure before it goes into the fridge for that long and cold ferment. Just like whenever you work out and you stretch, that strengthens your muscles, right? Same here, this just kind of strengthens that gluten structure one last time. So that give you that final fluffier, airier loaf. Second purpose that it has is that this is the part where you can add your inclusion. So add your jalapeno, cheddar, cinnamon, raisin, walnut, cranberry, whatever you want to add, you can add it right now. So get all your top. So we got it stretched out to a large rectangle. Then we are going to fold this side in half over and then this side over. Basically have a large cinnamon roll dough going on here. Then I'm going to fold this side over. Ooh, my mat's coming with me. And then we're going to fold the other side over. So now I have a long rectangle, long and skinny rectangle. Okay. Then we're going to grab our end here, kind of gently pull it. We're going to go in, tuck the corners in. Then we're just going to roll and pull, roll and pull, roll and pull. Okay. Might hear a couple bubbles. Okay, that's our pre-shape. Then we're just going to let it sit here and rest for another 30 minutes. Since we just stretched it, just to mess with it, we need it to rest. and relax for a little bit before we come back and do our final shape where we really do want to get it as tight. My Banneton ready. This is not an official Banneton. This is just a little colander that is from the dollar store. It's a McCormick. It's really the perfect size for this dough. It's not like your regular typical colander. It's a pretty small one. So I love these. But I have my little liner. This is actually just a hairnet. Yes, it's a hairnet. You could use a tea towel. You could use one of these. You could use your bread bowl. I just like this for convenience. And if you are interested in it, I have a link to it in my Amazon store. And I'm going to line it with some rice flour. So the reason why I like to use rice flour to line my Bannetons is because rice flour will not absorb into your dough. So if you were to line this with regular all-purpose, any other flour, any wheat flour, it will, as it sits in the fridge, it'll just absorb into the dough and likely up your chances of it sticking to your Banneton. With rice flour, it doesn't absorb into the dough, so it just provides that perfect layer for it not to stick. So just lightly layer it with some rice flour. If you don't have rice flour and you just use regular flour, that is fine. Just flour a little heavier than you would if you were using rice flour. It's been resting for 30 minutes. Now we are going to do the final shape. Okay, this is where we want it to get as much tension in our dough as possible. This method is called the clasp method, invented by, I cannot remember his name, William Clasp or something like that. Anyways, I love this method because it makes it really tight with very little effort. So we're gonna flip our dough over so the top was the bottom is the top. Okay, so we are going to do similar to what we did earlier, except this time it's gonna be a lot tighter already because we've already messed with it, and we're just gonna make a little rectangle. So we're gonna kind of gently pull it out just a little bit to where we make a little square this time. Again, it's going to be tighter. It's not going to stretch as much as it did that first time, and that's great. You don't want it to. So the goal here is to trap air inside. We're not necessarily trying to squeeze the air out. We're just trying to trap it inside, and that will give you for a bigger, fluffier loaf and create that surface tension. So we have our little square. Now I'm going to do the top one into the middle, seal the edges. The bottom one on top, seal the edges. Now I have this nice fat log. Then I'm going to grab the two edges and literally just clasp it shut. And I'm going to seal the top, seal the two sides, squeeze it, just the edges. You're not squeezing the whole dough, but you see how tight, that's it. You see how tight and of a ball that is? That's it. Now I'm going to stick it in my Banneton, like this. And that's it. You can seal it shut if you need to, if it starts opening back up. If it won't seal shut and it still keeps trying to open, wait 10 minutes and then reseal it. That 10 minutes will give the dough a chance to relax. So here it is in my Banneton. It's nice and jiggly, perfect dough. Now I'm going to stick my cover back on, and I'm going to put it in a plastic bag. This is just a little produce bag from the store. Stick it in a plastic bag, Walmart bag, whatever you got. And I'm going to put it in the fridge, and it's going to stay in there for a nice long cold ferment. Now in the fridge is where it develops all your classic sourdough tang flavor. So the longer you leave it in there, the tangier it will be. I like to leave it in there for at least a minimum 8 to 10 hours, so overnight. You can leave it in there depending on how much you let it rise. You can leave it in there for a good, 2 days. I like that 48-hour mark. It gives that perfect taste and flavor, in my opinion. It's not too bland, it's not too tangy. So you can also play around with it. So if you know that you want it to be in the fridge for a good 3 or 4 days, then don't let it rise all the way up to the top. Cut that bulk fermentation down a little bit sooner. That way, when you stick it in the fridge for the long cold ferment, it's still gonna ferment in there. It's just gonna do so at a very slow rate. So cut that bulk ferment down before it touches the top of the lid if you know it's gonna be in the fridge for like 3 days. That way it can continue fermenting in the fridge very slowly, yet it won't over ferment to where it will just fall flat. So play around with the times, find which way works best for you. This is the way that works best for me. So now I'm gonna put it in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow I will bake it. It's been in the fridge for about 15 hours now, doing this long cold ferment. So now we are going to bake with paper. I already have my oven preheated with my Dutch oven in there, so it is literally ready to be put in the oven. So while your oven is preheating, keep this in the fridge. We're not taking it out until we're ready to literally score it and put it in the oven. So this has just been sitting in there, and my oven is hot and ready. Parchment paper, lift it over. Now this scoring is really unnecessary. There's no requirement that you have to score your bread. Typically it's done just because you want to provide some sort of escape for the steam and the gas. If you don't score it, that's perfectly fine. It will just tear and crack naturally and give you a rustic looking loaf, but if you don't want to. But if you want to make a pretty design, then let's put some flour on it. You can use any flour you want. This will just help make the design really stand out. This is rice flour. Use whatever flour you prefer. And typically you want to make one pretty deep score, about a 1/2 inch deep. That's gonna be where your steam will allow to escape, and wherever you score it that deeply, it will expand. And then the other part is just your fancy design, okay? Now you could do as fancy or as simple as you want. I'm just gonna go with the simple little wheat stock and then slice down the middle. Here's my steam escape. It's about 1/2 inch deep, and if you go in it at a 45-degree angle, that's where it's going to allow you to have a more prominent ear, if that's what you're going for. Extremely hot Dutch oven here that's been preheated. Just going to plop it in there, parchment paper and all. And if you want to go the extra mile for some extra steam, just throw 1 or 2 ice cubes in underneath the parchment paper. Lid on. Bake it at 450 for 20 minutes with the lid on, and then we'll take the lid off and bake for another 20 minutes. So now we're gonna remove the lid. Ooh, look at that. And then we're gonna bake it another 20 minutes. I just got it out, but I'm gonna check the internal temperature. What I'm looking for is minimum of 205. That lets me know that it is fully baked on the inside. There's my timer. Might need to leave it in there, yeah. 97. I'm gonna leave it in there for a few more minutes. So I put it on for another 3 minutes. Oh yes, it is 206, 207, so we're good. Now we're going to let it cool on the rack for at least an hour before we cut into it, but it is. Check of time, it's definitely been over an hour. Look at this just absolutely gorgeous loaf. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's cut it. Ready for it? Oh, it is absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Now we gotta check and make sure it has the dog toy squeak that I always talk about. You hear it? Let's try this one. There you have it. So let me know if you try it, what you think of it. If you need the recipe, let me know. But if you follow this, you will, and you catch that bulk fermentation right, you will get a beautiful loaf of bread every time. If you don't follow any of those steps, And the only thing you do is catch that bulk fermentation right, using that little aliquot method to help you. That is more important. Then the stretch and folds, then the slap and folds. You could forget everything else I said, but if you learn to read your dough, catch your bulk fermentation, you are gonna get a beautiful, beautiful loaf of bread.